Hey guys, it's Alexandra from EyeLoveKnots.com and CreationCrochet.com. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make some really easy granny square earrings. This is my Laceweight Gia earring pattern. I have two sizes available. This is the smaller size. This pattern is really easy to add more rounds or take rounds away so that you can customize the size that you want. The same principle applies to the yarn that you're going to use. So I've used a number 10 crochet cotton thread, and that is what my pattern is designed with. But you can change this up. You could do embroidery floss, you could do a fingering weight yarn, you could even go up to a lightweight number 3 yarn. Now that is going to change the finished size of the square, but you can just use your soft tape measure and stop whenever you get to the size that you're looking for. Anything larger, like a worsted weight yarn, is probably going to be a little bit too big, so I wouldn't go that large. Together with the number 10 cotton thread, I'm using a 2.35mm crochet hook. There is a frame around my earrings to keep that square shape, and that frame is built from 7 mesh plastic canvas. I'm going to show you how to custom cut your canvas to your earrings. Now, I use the mesh to make my frames because I don't like to block things. But if you don't want to use the frame, you can just block your finished earrings or starch them. You're also going to need some scissors. You're going to need a tapestry needle to sew in your ends, jewelry pliers to put on the earring wires, and then a pair of earring wires. These are called fish hooks, but there are a lot of different options if you like different styles. There are stud options with the loop at the bottom. You could do a lever back earring, which are my personal favorite. I always go for stainless steel, that way it doesn't tarnish and I know it's going to be good quality, and I find a lot of my findings either at bohemianfindings.com or firemountaingems.com. I'll pop links and information down in the description box below. You're also going to find the link to the free written crochet pattern as well. You can view it on my blog for free. There is an option to purchase the PDF version on Etsy or Ravelry. And if you are an EyeLoveKnots, Creation Crochet, or On Rockwood Lane blog subscriber, or you have a Grow account from any blog that uses Grow for Lock content, you can get the PDF for free. You'll download it directly from my blog post in the PDF section. I'm going to be showing you this tutorial with clips from when I did my Gia ornaments for Christmas in July last year. They're made the same exact way. The ornaments are made with embroidery floss, and these earrings are made with number 10 cotton thread. You can use them pretty much the same way, and again, it's really easy to adjust if you want it to be smaller or larger. You simply just add more rounds or take rounds away. At the end, I'll come back with you so that I can show you how to put on your earring wires, and then your earrings will be ready to go. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with a slip knot. So I'm pulling the yarn over my fingers, and I'm going to wrap it around my index finger 2 times. Then I'll hold the tension with my thumb and my middle finger, and I'm going to pull the loop on the left up over the other one but not off my finger. Then I'll pull the loop on the left up over the other one and off my finger. Insert my crochet hook into that loop that's on my finger and pull it off. I'll hold the working yarn in my right hand and pull the short tail with my left to have this knot go to normal tension. And then we're ready to start. I'm going to start with a chain 5. To chain, we yarn over and pull through the loop on our hook. Yarn over, pull through the loop on our hook. Yarn over, pull through the loop on our hook. That's 3. I'm going to work so that I have 5 chains. And then we're going to slip stitch join to the first chain. So I'm holding the tension of the loop on my hook here with my right hand. I'm going to go all the way down to that first chain there and insert my crochet hook. Yarn over, pull through that stitch and through the loop on my hook. That is a slip stitch join to form a ring. Now if you open up this where the chains are, you're going to see there is a hole in the center, and that's where we're going to work our stitches from this first round. Not into the hole where we slip stitch joined. That is going to open up as we work because that knot is not secured. But we just want to make sure we work into that center hole there. We'll start with a chain 2. This chain 2 is going to count as our first double crochet from our first cluster. We're going to work 2 double crochets into that center ring, and together that'll be 3 stitches that will complete our first granny stitch cluster. As I work my stitches in this first round, I'm going to hold this initial tail end to the back of my chains, and I'm going to crochet over it. At the end, I'll be able to easily tighten that up and close that center hole. To double crochet, we're going to yarn over, insert a hook into the center ring, yarn over, pull through. There are 3 loops on my hook. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. Holding that tail end to the back of the chains, yarn over, insert your hook into the center ring, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And that's our first cluster there, 3 double crochets. In each corner, we're going to increase by working a chain of 3. And now we're going to work 3 more double crochets back into that center ring. Let's work 1 more double crochet together, yarn over, insert your hook into that center ring, yarn over, pull through. There are 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And we'll work 2 more double crochets into that center ring. And there's our second cluster. Each cluster is formed with 3 double crochets. We're going to work another corner, chain 3, then 3 double crochets back into that center ring, third cluster done, chain 3 for our next corner, and then we're going to work 3 more double crochets into that center ring for the very last granny square cluster. And now we just need to work 1 more corner here. On the first round, I worked this last one with just a chain 2. For some reason, chain 3 really throws off the shaping here for me, so I always work this last one as a chain 2 and only for the very first round, which is what we're working here. Now we're going to slip stitch join to the top chain of the beginning chain 2. So here's our very first stitch, which is that chain 2. On the bottom is the first chain, and on the top is the second chain. We'll insert our hook right into the center of that chain, then yarn over, pull through that stitch and the loop that's on my hook, and that completes our slip stitch for the round, as well as round 1. I'm going to first show you how to work round 2 in a solid color, and that is going to be how you're going to work all your granny squares if you just want to do a solid color. After that, I will show you how to change colors if you want to work round 2 in a different color. So if you do want to change colors, you can pop down into the description box below, click on the timestamp, and it will jump you forward in the video. To continue in the same color, I'm going to slip stitch into each of those next 2 double crochets and then into the chain space. So I'm just going to insert my hook into the next stitch, picking up both loops from that stitch, yarn over, pull through that stitch and the loop on my hook, slip stitch into the next double crochet, and slip stitch into the chain space by inserting my hook directly into the center of the chain space and working over the chains. Then we start with a chain 2 that counts as our first double crochet for the first cluster. Then I'll work 2 double crochets into the same exact chain space, yarn over, insert my hook right into the center of the chain space, picking up the chains on my hook, and then complete my double crochet. 1 more double crochet in there. Then I'll chain 3 and work 3 more double crochets back into that same exact chain space. Each corner is going to be worked exactly the same, 3 double crochets, chain 3, 3 double crochets, and each time you begin, you'll begin the same way. Chain 2 as your first double crochet, 2 double crochets, chain 3, and then 3 double crochets, and that completes your first corner. Here in the corners we're working a chain 3 to increase. Here in the middle and between our clusters we're going to work a chain 1. In the next corner chain space I'm going to work 3 double crochets, chain 3, then 3 more double crochets back into that same exact chain space. Second corner is finished. Chain 1 in between. In the next corner chain space I'm going to work 3 double crochets, chain 3, 3 double crochets. Then I'll work a chain 1. I'll work my last corner, 3 double crochets, chain 3, 3 double crochets, 1 final chain 1, and then we'll slip stitch join. There's my last corner, chain 1 here in the middle, slip stitch join to the second chain of the beginning chain 2, so chain 1 is on the bottom, chain 2 on the top, insert right into the center, and complete a slip stitch. You can pop into the description box below, click on the timestamp that's for the border, and it will jump you forward in the video. If you're going to continue making a bigger size and you want to continue in the same color, you're going to work it the same way. You're going to slip stitch into each of those next 2 double crochets, slip stitch into the corner chain space, chain 2, and begin your next round, which I will show in just a few moments. I'm going to show how to change colors for round 2. So if you want to go ahead and continue to round 3 working in the same color, pop down in the description box below, scroll down to the timestamp section, and click on the timestamp for that. It will jump you forward in the video. Let me frog this round real quick back down to round 1, and then I'll show you how to change colors. So here we've slip stitched round 1. To change colors, I'm still going to begin it the same way. I'm going to slip stitch into each of those next 2 double crochets and then into the chain space. So insert my hook right into the next stitch, picking up both loops of that V, yarn over, pull through that stitch and the loop that's on my hook, slip stitch into the next double crochet, and then insert my hook into the next chain space, picking up the chains on my hook, and complete a slip stitch. Now I'm going to fasten off this first color. There are lots of ways that you can change colors. I am showing you my preferred way. I will link in the description box below other ways that you can change colors when working in granny squares. Here as I fasten off, I am leaving a tail end long enough that I can comfortably weave in. Then I'm going to pull up on that loop to break it. Now I'm going to insert my hook into the chain space from the right side to the wrong side, yarn over with that tail end and pull it through. It wraps that tail end around the chain space, but it also keeps the correct shape and position of that last stitch. And I'm going to crochet over that a little bit as I work this next round. I'm going to use white as my next color. I'm going to insert my crochet hook into that chain space that I did my final slip stitch in, pull my new color through, and tie a basic knot. So loop it over, pull it through, and then tighten it down. I want to make sure that I leave a tail end long enough I can comfortably weave in. I'm going to crochet over it for the first couple of stitches to count as my first pass so I don't have to weave as much. Then I'll insert my hook into that chain space, yarn over and pull through, then chain 2, and I'm ready to begin. This is how I like to tie on my yarn when I'm changing colors here in Granny Squares, my preferred method. You can do it whatever way you're most comfortable with. Now I'm going to start here in this first corner with 2 double crochets. When I yarn over and insert my hook here, I'm going to have the chains on my hook as well as the white tail end. I'm holding it up against the chain so that I can crochet over it. One more double crochet here. Then I'm going to chain 3 for the corner. And now I'm going to work 3 double crochets back into that same chain space. Now we've reached our initial tail that we cut off. So we're going to crochet over that, and as you work, it will naturally wrap it around the chain and pull it to the back side. I'm only going to work over the tail ends for the first 2 double crochets here. And then I have 1 more double crochet left to complete my cluster, but I'm going to drop the tail ends. I don't want to crochet over them anymore, and that's so that I have the last stitch here to work into as I'm weaving my ends in. It gives me a little space here to come into this as a nearby stitch. Each time you start a round, you're going to start it the same way. Chain 2, 2 double crochets, chain 3, 3 double crochets, all into that same chain space to form your first corner. And if you decide to change colors each time, this is how I would do it. In the corners we chain 3, in the middle of the clusters we chain 1. So here I'm going to chain 1. Now I've reached my next corner chain space where I'm going to work 3 double crochets. Then chain 3 for my corner. And then we're going to work 3 more double crochets back into that same exact chain space. Then in the middle of the clusters, we chain 1. We'll continue working around, 3 double crochets, chain 3, 3 double crochets into the next chain space, then chain 1. Final chain space, there's going to be 3 double crochets, chain 3, 3 double crochets. Then we'll work 1 more chain 1 and then slip stitch join to complete our round. Here's my last corner. Now I'll chain 1 and slip stitch join to the top chain of the beginning chain 2, so on the bottom is the first chain and on the top is the second chain. Insert right into the center of that chain, then yarn over, pull through that stitch and through the loop that's on my hook. And that completes my slip stitch and round 2. You can pop down into the description box below, scroll down to the timestamp and click on it, and it will move you forward in the video. If I'm going to be alternating the same colors, the next round's going to be red, after that I'll do white again. I like to carry my yarn up so that I don't have to fasten it off and weave in the ends for each round. If I'm going to use different colors, I like to fasten it off at the end and not carry it up so that it doesn't create really long floats on the back. Unless the back's going to be covered up or you don't mind having that float on there. So I'm going to show you how to carry up your yarn. There are also a couple ways that you could change your yarn. I'm about to show you the way that I like to do for the most seamless change when I'm carrying my yarn up. So I'm going to start by slip stitching into the next double crochet, and then slip stitching into that final double crochet there, and then slip stitching into the chain space. Then I'll grab my new color. In this case it's going to be red, and I should have carried up from before, but I didn't think about the color sequence until after. I am forming a loop here with the tail end long enough I can comfortably weave in. I'm going to put this loop on my crochet hook and pull it through. Then I'll grab the white, the original tail end that I'm switching from, pull on that tail so that the white disappears. Drop the white, drop the red tail, and pick up the new strand here. Then I will chain 2, which is going to be the beginning of my round. The white is going to come up because it's not secured yet, but you can just pull on that tail end, pull on it tight, and the white is going to disappear. You don't see it anymore. And it'll stay like that after you weave in the end. I'm going to start with 2 double crochets here into this chain space. Then chain 3, 3 more double crochets back into that same exact chain space, and I only crochet over the tail end for the first 2, and then I drop it, work my last double crochet here, and that's just to give me some stitches nearby to work into when I'm weaving in my end. I'm going to chain 1. In the next chain space, I'm going to work 3 double crochets. Then I'm going to chain 1. Remember, in the middle we chain 1 in between clusters. In the next corner I'll work 3 double crochets. Then a chain 3, and 3 more double crochets back into that same exact corner chain space. Then I'll work a chain 1. Next center chain space is going to be 3 double crochets in there. Then I'll chain 1, and I'm back to another corner. I'm going to continue in pattern in this corner here. I'll work 3 double crochets, chain 3, 3 double crochets, then chain 1, 3 double crochets in that center chain space, chain 1. In that final corner, 3 double crochets, chain 3, 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets in that last chain 1 space there in the middle, chain 1, and then we'll slip stitch join. Here's my last cluster of the round. I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to insert my hook into that top chain of the beginning chain 2. If you've been working and the middle of your square has sort of come in and it takes the shape of a butterfly, then that means that you need to rework your square, and instead of doing a chain 1 in between the clusters, you're going to work a chain 2. It means that you need more stitches in there to let it lay naturally and be square. Alternatively, if you're working and your work is taking more of a rounded shape, then you'll want to rework your square and take out that chain 1. So there won't be any stitches in between the clusters, but it will still create a space for you because you're skipping that previous cluster. Those are the 2 things that could go wrong with this granny square, and that is going to be how you're going to correct it. Before I show you how to do the frame, I'm going to go ahead and weave in the ends here since I have a bunch of them and I don't want them to get in the way. So I'm just going to pull up a big loop here so I don't lose this last stitch and remove my hook. And then I'll flip it to the wrong side. In the center, that one is different. So I'm going to thread that into my tapestry needle. Here in the center, we're going to work around the ring that we first made. I'm going to work clockwise around the whole entire thing until I get back to the beginning. Then I'm going to work past it a few stitches. This brings me back to the beginning. Now I'm going to work a few stitches past it. Then I'm going to hold the fabric in between my middle finger and my thumb here on my left hand. And I'm going to pull on the thread, and it's going to close this hole up. Now we need to secure it in place. I'm going to rotate my fabric so I can work back in the same direction I just came. Instead of picking up the whole entire stitch as I work, I'm going to insert my needle into the center of that stitch, breaking it in half. I'm going to break it in half as I enter and exit, and that's going to help capture my yarn better. So I'm going into a nearby stitch here, and then I'm going to work up through several stitches, breaking my last stitch in half as I exit. Give it a tug and rotate my fabric. Same thing, insert into a nearby stitch, breaking that stitch in half. Work up through several stitches that I just worked, and break my last stitch in half when I exit. Hold the fabric and give it a tug. If you feel secure, you can weave in your end at any time. My magic number is 3. I always go for 3 passes. If I still don't feel secure, I will work a 4th one just for peace of mind. It's whatever works best for you that you feel the most secured with. And then just fasten off. It's a little bit trickier with floss because it has so many strands that split. So just make sure you get them all into your tapestry needle. And if you remember, I crocheted over this, so I'm going to count that as my first pass. Here, I'm going to insert into the next stitch and work all the way up, breaking my stitch in half here. Give it a tug and use your fingers to manipulate the fabric if you need to make sure it doesn't bunch up and it still lays naturally. Then I'll rotate. Insert into the nearby stitch here. Work through several of the stitches I just worked through, making sure to break my stitches when I enter and exit. Then I'll give it a tug, and I'll use my fingers again to manipulate the fabric to make sure that this lays naturally. It's very easy for it to bunch up here. And I'm going to go ahead and work one more pass. I'm going to work this next pass just for a little bit of extra peace of mind here. And then I'll fasten off. Down here in the white, you'll do the same thing with the initial tail end there. The other ones are going to be worked vertically into that cluster there to the left of it. So here's the white, the second white tail, the one we fastened off at the end. And I'm going to go here into a nearby stitch and work vertically and sort of diagonally downward through that cluster there, the closest one. Give it a tug. Use my fingers if I need to manipulate the fabric, rotate it, and work back in the same direction, starting in a nearby stitch, breaking it in half, working up through several of the same stitches. And I'll turn it. This is pass number 3. And I'm going to work one more. Give it a tug, use my fingers here, fasten off this yarn. And I'm going to work all the ones that I fasten off at the end the same way. There's just going to be one exception, and that's going to be our very last stitch we haven't fastened off yet. We're going to weave that into the border. When you're working with a really thin yarn or thread or floss, sometimes weaving in can be really hard because it doesn't capture your tail, or you feel like it doesn't have enough to hold on to it. One way to work with this is going to be to build up something for you to work into. What I mean is we can wrap our thread around the existing stitches here on the back side, working around just in this top layer so I can't see it from the front. And that creates a little bit of extra bulkiness here. Then when I weave this last one here on the bottom, I'm going to break it in half. Then I can work vertically right up through the bulkiness that I just created. Break my last stitch in half and pull through. Then I go back and I use my fingers to manipulate the fabric because it does bunch up a lot easier, but it gives you a lot more to work with and to help capture your thread a little bit better. Right now I'm going to weave in these other 2 ends off camera, and then I'll be back to show you how to cut your canvas and how to work your border. Alright, now that our granny square is finished, I need to cut the plastic canvas. I know that I'm going to be cutting mine 16 holes by 16 holes, but I found that out because I laid the granny square onto the plastic mesh and I put that up against the edge. So the plan is to cut the square and then cut all the insides out so you're just left with a frame. So I would put this up as if it was right next to where I would be crocheting around the frame, which is the edge there, on 2 sides. So I have it on the left and on the bottom. And then I just slightly stretched it a little bit to see where I should cut the next hole. So you can see it here right along this edge right here. And I checked it the same way, stretching height-wise, and then I counted the holes on the top and going down to make sure it was a square, and then I cut out the square. So if your square is larger or smaller, you can still make a frame for it. You just have to put it up against your mesh, slightly stretch it out, and see where it falls the best, and then cut to that. So as I said, I knew that mine was going to be 16 holes. So here I'm just literally counting the open holes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So I have plenty here. And then I'm going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. When you cut, you're going to cut outside of that. So there's my 16th hole, and there's the edge right there. I want that edge for my finished square, so I'm cutting just to the right of that edge. That way my finished piece is just going to be 16 holes wide. And I usually cut one and then I recount to make sure that I have enough before I cut the whole thing and realize I was wrong. So there's 16 holes, and then I'm going to cut upwards, and I'm just going to cut all the way to the top because it's just going to leave like 3 holes. But we're going to do the same thing here, so I'll count again: 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 holes. And I'm going to count again before I cut: 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 holes. And I want to cut right to the right of that last hole so that I get that edge in there. And I'm going to just continue cutting all along the edge all the way across so I have a square. And this is what your piece that you cut looks like. It has like teeth sticking out, and we have a clean edge on our square. Now I want to take out all the squares inside, so I'm just left with the top and the sides and the bottom, just the edge that's there. So this is soft canvas. It is easy to fold it, and I'll cut in the center, then open it up and cut across to the edge. So there's the last box there on the edge, and I've cut all the way through so that now I'm on the final edge there on the top. And then I'm just going to turn it, and I'm going to cut all the insides there along that edge. So I have just the edge there. And I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to do the same thing all the way around, cutting all the insides out and just leaving the square edgings around it. And now we have two pieces. We have a square frame, and we have the inside of that square. You can set this aside. I recommend saving it even though it looks like it's not too big and it's cut, but if you do plastic canvas crafts, you never know what you're going to need. I find that scraps come in handy all the time. So if you don't do plastic canvas scraps, then I guess throw it away, but I always keep my scraps. So here is our square frame now. I'm going to take my granny square. I have not fastened off the yarn, so I have a tail end from my working yarn. As I crochet the border, I'm going to crochet over the frame. So I want the frame to be on the back. I'm going to set the granny square down for a moment, and I'm just going to put the frame over my middle finger and my ring finger on my left hand. Then I'm going to take my granny square, put it on top, and hold my yarn as I normally do. So the frame is sitting on my fingers right now. If you don't want to add this frame, or if you're going to block your square, you would just work the border the same exact way as we're about to, but just into the square itself. So I'm going to tighten this knot down, chain 1. We're going to be working single crochets here. So for the very first stitch, we're going to insert our hook into the stitch, and then we're going to insert our hook under the frame. That way when we complete our stitch, we'll have secured this in place. Yarn over, pull through the stitch. You have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. That's a single crochet, and now you can see that that stitch is worked over the frame. Then we'll single crochet into the next double crochet, insert your hook into that stitch. When you do that, you'll have the frame on top of your hook as well. Yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both loops. Single crochet into the next double crochet, insert your hook into that stitch. You have the frame on your hook as well. Yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both loops. So with every stitch that you work the granny square on your hook and the frame on your hook. Here we've reached the next corner, so we're going to increase in there. In order to do the increase and cover all the stitches here along the edge, we're going to work 5 single crochets into that chain space. It doesn't matter where your frame is positioned at the moment. We will work the first 3 single crochets here, and then we'll reposition it so that it's on the corner, and then we'll work the final 2 single crochets. So there's my 3rd single crochet. That's going to be the middle or the most corner stitch of this corner. So I'm going to just pull on the plastic frame, and with the other hand I'll slide my work up. And I just want that 3rd single crochet, that last one I just worked, to sit right over top of the corner from the mesh. Then I'll finish off by working 2 more single crochets into the same chain space. And now you can see our corner is complete and it's completely covered up. 5 single crochets in that corner, and it's worked all the way around the mesh there so that even the corner is covered. We're going to continue along. We're going to single crochet into each stitch of the granny stitch cluster. And then we will work a single crochet into the next chain space and continue all the way across until we get to the next corner. And now I've reached the next corner. I'm going to work 5 single crochets into that chain space. But before I do that, I'm just going to start with the first 3 so I can get my square positioned correctly here. There's my 3rd single crochet of the corner, and I'm just going to pull my fabric again so that that stitch is right over top of the point from that corner. And then I'll continue working 2 more single crochets here, and now you can see that second corner has come together nicely and the edge is just perfect. And you'll continue working in the same manner, single crochet into each stitch and space all the way across. Work 3 single crochets into that next corner chain space, position your fabric, and then work 2 more single crochets back into that chain space, single crochet all the way down that side. Same thing in this corner, and continue single crocheting across till you're back to the beginning. There's my last single crochet. And now we're just going to slip stitch join to the very first single crochet. To make a hanging loop over the corner chain space, I am going to start by slip stitching up until I get to the 3rd single crochet of the corner. Then I'm going to chain 4. You can chain more or less here depending on the size of the loop that you want. Then I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch. Now my loop is secured, and then I'm going to continue slip stitching down until I get to the 1 single crochet in this chain space here on the left side, so that this side matches the other side. And now I'm ready to fasten off. Going to make sure I have a tail end long enough to weave in. Pull up on my loop to break it. Insert my hook from the wrong side, which is the back side, to the front side through the last stitch that I worked my slip stitch. Yarn over and pull the tail end to the back. And now I'm going to weave that in either along the side of the border there or into one of the clusters there. And if the corner from your mesh is popping through, then you can just use your fingers to manipulate the fabric there on the corner and it'll cover it up. And now you have a hanging loop to use. Now that you have your earring finished, we're going to go ahead and add our earring wires. Most earring wires are going to be worked the same way. Some earring wires don't have the same loop on the end, and you'll have to add a jump ring in between. The jump ring is going to be opened and closed the same way as this earring wire, and you'll just put it in between your earring wire and your earring. But for fish hooks, they're going to have this type of loop on them. So you'll grab your earring wire, grab your pair of jewelry pliers. Mine are a little squeaky and they get stuck. But you're going to push this little ball up a little bit so that you can see the opening of the loop. You're going to grab the loop on the side and you're going to pull it forward. And it's going to open up that loop. And then just make sure you keep holding onto your ball so that it doesn't fall down in there. Then grab your square. You're going to have the front side or the right side facing up. And the part that goes in my ear is over here on the left side. You just want to make sure that you're putting your granny square onto your earring in a way that when you're wearing it, the front is facing out. So that's how I know which way to put this on. Then I'm just going to slide that loop right onto that loop that's open. Then I'm going to grab my jewelry pliers and I'm going to close that loop back up. And now I'm just going to grab it and push backwards. And it'll go back to its shape. So you definitely don't want to open it sideways. You want to open and close it front and back. And if it's not even, then just take your jewelry pliers and go in there and even it out. Now you'll repeat for the second pair and your earrings will be ready to go. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. These earrings are one of my favorite things. I wear them all the time. Remember that you'll find the link to the pattern in the description box below. It would help me out a ton if you would smash that like button to let YouTube know you enjoyed this. Subscribe while you're there, and I'll catch you in the next one.